Hey, Larry Elder here. Thank you for listening to the Bucky Dillon Show, hosted by the Liberty Revolt and KHNC.
Good morning, guys. Good to be with you, hanging out right here live from 1360 KHNC Studios in beautiful Johnstown, Colorado. I'm Bucky Dillon. I'm your host. This is the Bucky Dillon Morning Show, our morning show, a collaborative between myself and the free-thinking, free-spirited, freedom-loving, free speech advocating patriot community right here in Northern Colorado and tuning in worldwide on the radio broadcast 1360khnc.com. Listen anytime, anywhere. You're welcome here. We are genuine patriots. We love our country. We love our countrymen because that's what loving your country is. We respect our founding ideals and we try to live up to them. We welcome diversity of thought. We welcome people who think differently. We have an interesting audience that is comprised of people who simultaneously hold this dichotomy of existence between being rebels and being patriots. And they do it. And in some sense, being an American patriot means being a rebel. Because we rebelled against the tyranny of empires, the tyranny of monarchy. We rebelled against the tyranny of slavery. We rebel against tyranny today. But there are those in our very country who would like to see that tyranny come back. Top-down control by government officials. See, they like to blur the lines between society and government. They believe that if something is good, by their own definition, that it should be mandated. But that's the problem. Who chooses? Who defines what is good? Well, the progressives do. Whatever's in vogue with them today. See, I was starting to talk about in the second or in the first hour. Conservatives have a logical endpoint. They point to the Constitution and they say that's it. That's the society we want to live in. That's the government we want to have. But the left has no such logical endpoint. That's why they have to run further and further to the left. And then they're so far away from the center that they have to redefine the center. And now anyone who believes in our founding ideals is a far-right, violent radical. And if they're far-right, violent radicals, if they're fascists, then you can justify any force against them, any tyranny against them. They believe that they're the army of the saints. That makes you the army of Satan. Think about that. Why do they think it's okay to lie and cheat and smear? Because if Satan, if evil is your enemy, nothing's off the table. And that's how they feel about their fellow Americans. That's how they feel about us. That's how they feel about me. I come out here every single day, every weekday, for 2 hours, and I find different ways of reinforcing my same message, the same core belief that we have a patriotic duty to love our countrymen, that we need progressives pointing out disparities and discriminations, and that we need conservatives reminding people, hey, that utopian vision eventually leads to authoritarianism. So let's respect our traditions. Let's study our history. Let's understand that we live in a world of trade-offs, that sometimes government isn't the best tool. And let's do what worked. We've in the last 250 years lifted the world out of poverty at a rate that far exceeds any expectations. There's no better time. There's no better place you could ever hope to be born. We're incredibly blessed. But the left doesn't see that because they're not looking to the history and comparing it with where we are today and using that as a gauge to decide where we should go from here. They're looking at some utopian vision that, and so they're looking to the future. It's all about what could be. And what's the key characteristic of the future? It's imaginary. It doesn't exist. And every election cycle, they go further and further and further and further to the left. Why? Because they need something new to run on. Because every time they solve an injustice, there's no logical endpoint. Every time they solve an injustice, they have to have something new to run on. So they need to find a new injustice, and a new injustice, and a new injustice. And the only way for government to solve problems is to consolidate power. But what happens when the government has a consolidation of power over its people? Tiananmen Square. Gulags. Concentration camps. North Korea is a country that has a consolidation of power. Venezuela is a country that has a consolidation of power. Nazi Germany was a country that had a consolidation of power. Right? And they think they're the army of the saints while simultaneously pushing socialism. I don't think any of these people know what socialism is. Because if you looked at 19th, 20th century history, how could you look at that and come back and say socialism was a great idea? Let me guess. Is it love or hate that kills 200 million people? Is it love or hate? The Bucky Dillon Morning Show.
Are you paying too much for your home, life, or auto insurance? It only takes 10 minutes to find out. Hi, this is Kevin Bowles with Badger Insurance Advisors. Choosing insurance plans can be difficult. That's why I make it easy. I'll make the calls, compare the plans and prices, and find you the insurance plan that fits your needs. Best of all, my help is at no cost to you. Call me today at 303-359-1799 or visit badgerinsuranceadvisors.com. Let me find the right insurance for you.
No people will tamely surrender their liberties, nor can any be easily subdued when knowledge is diffused and virtue is preserved. On the contrary, when people are universally ignorant and debauched in their manners, they will sink under their own weight without the aid of foreign invaders. Samuel Adams.
Hey, it's Larry Elder. Thank you for listening to me every weekday from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. right here on 1360 KHNC, the roar of the Rockies. Do you own a business in northern Colorado or surrounding areas? Are you looking to reach a conservative, family-based, loyal audience which could grow your business? Well, take my advice and just call 970-587-5003 or email on the air at 1360khnc.com and tell them Larry sent you.
This is Sam Shook, Navy Vet and Medicare Specialist. I just want to thank the KHNC listeners for their support and trust in me as their Medicare specialist. If you are currently on Plan F, we are in a window of opportunity that can save you a lot of money towards your monthly premium. Please contact me at 970-413-4939. If you are getting into Medicare soon or are already enrolled and have questions, please call me at 970-413-4939. Again, thanks KHNC listeners.
The Bucky Dillon Show is a Liberty Revolt Media production. www.libertyrevoltmedia.com. Nothing is off the table. That's how they feel. That's why they're willing to lie. That's why they're willing to cheat. They think they're bringing about heaven on earth. The majority of the people today that are mining history for disparities and discriminations, they're not searching for the truth. The 1619 Project is not searching for the truth. Searching for a weapon. They are searching for opportunities to exploit the sins of the past to justify undermining our society today. They're looking for grievances that they can cash in on at the expense of people and for the benefit of others who were not around when any of those things happened. Not only are the motives wrong, they're almost invariably counterproductive. Not only are the history of slavery is the history of slavery selectively filtered beyond recognition, but the abolition of slavery as well. The very notion of social justice is at odds with justice. Justice is a very self-explanatory term. It doesn't need a modifier. Anytime you add a modifier to the word justice, you're detracting from the original meaning of justice. That's what you're doing. It's being used by political establishments to sell constituents a sense of helpless victimhood for the sake of dividing the country and accumulating political power. That's all it's about. It's all about accumulating power, the concentration of power. I said it just the other day. The left doesn't dislike guns. They love guns. They just want to have a monopoly on guns. Just like they want to have a monopoly on speech. Just like they want to have a monopoly in the elections. And that's what this not accomplishing border security, but instead giving amnesty to the people here. You know what that's going to do? That's just going to highly incentivize people to rush the border. Why do we have a caravan? Thousands of people making their way to the United States. Because Joe Biden is saying, I'm going to stop building the wall. We're going to stop deporting people, and we're going to give them citizenship, and we're going to give them voting rights. It's all for the concentration of power. They know illegal immigration hurts the societies in this country that are most historically disadvantaged and they're most currently disadvantaged. They know it's single mothers. They know it's people of color. They know it's people with troubled criminal histories who are first to be overlooked in a job interview, who have to compete for these jobs. They don't care. They care about power because they're bringing about heaven on earth. Heaven for them. Which side is authoritarian? The one that wants to lower your taxes and let you keep more of your own money? Which side is authoritarian? The one that wants you to have the right to defend yourself against a tyrannical government with force if necessary? Which side wants to impose a tyranny? The side that wants to increase regulations drastically, tell you how to run your own business? You're too stupid. You're too immoral to run your own business. The government will do that for you. Which one is authoritarian? The one that wants to lock down your state, lock down your business for months and months at a time? You know what these stimulus checks are? That's them lifting your head out of the toilet bowl for 1 second so they could say, "Oh, we care about you," before they plunge your face back under the water. There are countless examples throughout world history of redistribution schemes that have done nothing but drive out the groups that produce wealth. The Huguenots were French Protestants in the 16th and 17th centuries who were persecuted by the French Catholic government. They fled the country in the 17th century, creating Huguenot settlements all over Europe, the United States, and Africa. Prior to the arrival of the Huguenots, there was no watch industry in Switzerland or England, but upon their arrival, London and Switzerland were shortly counted among the most dominant watchmakers in the world. As may be obvious, the economies of these countries benefited from this. At the end of the 15th century, Spain decided to expel all of the Jews and essentially confiscate their wealth. So the Jews migrated to various places, including the Netherlands, where they rose to prosperity again. As it were, the economy of the Netherlands improved while that of Spain got worse. I challenge any of my friends on the left to point to any example anywhere in the world where the policies that they're pushing for the black community, that they've pushed for the last 60 years, and the ones they're proposing now, has ever lifted any community out of poverty in a sustainable way. Go ahead, call in 970-680-1360. You tell me, where have these policies, these Democrat liberal welfare policies, ever lifted anyone out of poverty sustainably? Look at the black community. I don't think Democrats want to help the black community. I think they want to destroy their community and then prop them up as victims of society and then say that they're the only answer. Democrats have used the destruction of the family, enforced ignorance, fear, and population control to manipulate and foster dependence in America's black population to this day and since the time of slavery. The only difference is, since the 60s, they've hidden behind the mask of compassion. Here are the 4 key strategies that slave owners implemented and that the Democrat Party still implements today in black communities. The separation of family and the destruction of common history and culture by any means necessary, because isolated individuals are much easier to oppress and intimidate. Forced ignorance and dependence, depriving people of education and skills that would make them self-sufficient. Fear, by convincing people that the world outside of the slave state is even more dangerous, and by bullying and cruelty towards the disobedient. Strict population control, keeping the enslaved population a minority group. It wasn't until the party of the KKK, the Democrats, took up the mantle of civil rights in the mid to late 60s that black Americans began to reliably and overwhelmingly vote for Democrats like they do today. However, there have long been suspicions about the Democrats' sincerity. Prior to the passing of the Civil Rights Act, President Lyndon Baines Johnson had a history of blatant racism. He referred to the Civil Rights Act as the N-word bill. Despite championing the most historical legislation towards living up to the Constitution's declaration that all men were created equal, he also had a history of derogatory attitudes towards black Americans throughout his life and his political career. Even as president, Johnson rarely shied away from using the N-word in private. Some reports even claimed that he said, "These Negroes are getting pretty uppity these days, and that's a problem for us since they've got something now that they've never had before, the political pull to back up their uppityness. Now we've got to do something about this. We've got to give them a little something, just enough to quiet them down, but not enough to make a difference. For if we don't move at all, then their allies will line up against us, and there will be no way of stopping them. We'll lose the filibuster, and there will be no way of putting a brake on all sorts of wild legislation. It'll be Reconstruction all over again. He literally said that he was going to pass this bill, and he would have those N-words voting Democrat for the next 200 years. This was not because he wanted equality. It was strictly a ploy for the Democrat Party. And then in 1964, Lyndon Johnson, at the State of the Union address, said, and I quote, "This administration today, here and now, declares unconditional war on poverty in America." How has that war on poverty gone so far? We've spent, what, $24 billion on the war on poverty? Has any of the root causes of poverty gone away? It seems to me that poverty levels are essentially the same, but all of the root causes of poverty have gotten drastically worse. This doesn't even include Social Security or Medicare. This is 3 times the cost of all U.S. military wars, all of them. And yet, as measured by data collected by the U.S. Census Bureau, the poverty rate has remained essentially the same, while the underlying causes of poverty are more prevalent. A significant portion of the U.S., particularly minority communities, are less capable now of self-sufficiency than they were in the 1960s. Contrary to the notion that economic progress accelerated after the passage of the Civil Rights Act and the war on poverty, in the 20 years preceding the 1960s, the black poverty rate had fallen 40 points from 87% to 47%. There was only an 18% reduction in the poverty rate in the 20 years after the passage of the Civil Rights Act. That is to say that in the 20 years after the passage of the welfare state, the rate at which poverty was falling was slowed to half the pace to which it had already been falling in the 20 years preceding. In the 1960s, the single motherhood rate in the black community was 22%. It's almost 80% now. We can argue about the average, but in some communities, it's 80 to 90% of children are growing up without a father. Obama pointed out, children who grow up without a father are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of schools, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison. And it's not exclusive to America. It's not exclusive to the black community. The effects are similar in England, where they have produced almost the exact same results, including a drastic increase in crime and gang culture, despite the absence of a legacy of slavery against poor people in England. First half of the 20th century, public housing projects were overwhelmingly clean and safe. But alongside the policies of President Johnson, Supreme Court Justice Earl Warren, supported roundly by the self-complained compassionate liberal intellectuals, pursued lenient on crime policies in the 1960s. The popular premise was that police were overly involved in black communities and that more lenient policing and the new anti-poverty programs could usher in a new era of peace and socioeconomic improvement. Does that sound familiar? However, tragically, at the same year it was implemented, the violent crime rate 139% and the murder rate doubled. And this drastic increase in violent crime has been a continuing trend. Today, although only accounting for 13% of the population, young black men in the communities where these policies have been applied have committed more than 50% of all of the homicides since 1976. And most other violent offenses, including robbery, aggravated assault, and property crimes, 3 times the representation of the population. You're listening to the Bucky Dillon Show, right here on 1360 KHNC.
Hi, everybody. Glenn Tate, co-host of Prepping 2.0.
Shelby Gallagher here. Join us Saturdays at 9 a.m.
right here on 1360 KHNC,
where we bring you great ideas to take your preps to the next level.
1360 KHNC is proud to announce our partnership with My Kind CBD, a local Colorado-based company that uses no pesticides, no herbicides, completely organic, no heavy metals. All their products are CAO certified. That's right, independently lab certified. Our prices are the best in the country. Go out to 1360khnc.com and hit the shopping cart button and make your purchase today.
Triangle Cross Ranch, a Christian-based family ranch community, has the availability for more ranchers to join the family. We accept adults over 18 years old with cognitive disabilities. If you have a friend or loved one who wants more independence in a Christian ranch home, contact Triangle Cross Ranch at 970-454-2219 or 36049 County Road 51, P.O. Box 727, Gailton, Colorado 80622.
Hi, this is Mike Morris, owner of Warriors Revolution Tactical in Longmont. At Warriors Revolution, we have the largest selection of tactical gear and ammo in northern Colorado. But what many people may not know is that we now sell firearms. And even despite the recent run on firearms and ammunition, we have plenty of product in the store, including ARs, AKs, Glocks, SIGs, HK, and more. And don't forget all the bulk ammunition at the best prices in town. Need to do a private firearms transfer? We can do that too. I am a veteran of the United States Marine Corps, and our team is made up of veterans and security experts, not a bunch of salesmen. Our team is trained and fought with much of the actual equipment we sell. And one thing you should know is that we support the foundations and principles this great country was founded upon. So if you need tactical gear, ammo, firearms, AR parts or upgrades, and even survival accessories, stop by and visit us on Ken Pratt Boulevard and Bowen Street in Longmont, or visit warriorsrevolution.com. That's warriorsrevolution.com.
Does this corrupt monetary system give you a whack to the head or a poke in the eye? Call Patriot Trading Group at 800-951-0592. That's 800-951-0592. Don't be a stooge. Buy gold and silver today.
Hi, this is Dr. Wayne Hoffman. Are you struggling with medical issues or chronic pain? Do you have medical questions you can't find the answers to? You may want to check out my show, Proactive Health Strategies, every Sunday from 12 to 2, right here on 1360 KHNC, the Roar of the Rockies.
Great minds think alike. Thank you for listening to the Bucky Dillon Show, hosted by the Liberty Revolt. Join me, Larry Elder, today at 5 on 1360 KHNC. Now back to Bucky Dillon.
Does that sound familiar to you? Oh, the cops are being too tough on crime. They're terrorizing the community. So they spout off with this anti-police rhetoric, which does nothing but make things worse. The police, there's something called the Ferguson effect. The police withdraw from the community because of the public backlash, and they cease to proactively enforce crime. They see people engaged in shady things, people who look like gangsters stumbling around, and they don't want to interrogate them. They don't want to ask questions. They'll just wait till after the crime is committed. They're not going to proactively prevent crime. They don't want to be accused of racism. So they withdraw. And the homicide rate following the George Floyd protests in Chicago went up drastically. In New York, in Baltimore. Did you know that at the height of the George Floyd protests in LA was a 30-year low in police shootings? Do the people who were throwing rocks at the police and chanting all cops are bad and all this other crap, did they know that police shootings have been going down drastically? And hey, you can say that it is not PC for me to say it, but the truth is a police officer is 18.5 times more likely to get shot by a black criminal than an American black man is to get shot by a criminal cop. So you could make the case that these police officers are martyring themselves to try to make a positive difference in the community. And what do they get? Pigs in a blanket. Fry them like bacon. What a tragedy. What an absolute tragedy. Guys, I'm getting bummed out talking about this stuff. Still talking about this stuff. I can't believe I'm still talking about this stuff. You know, I for one will absolutely be taking my CBD products after this episode. Good Lord. 1360 KHNC press shop. Get yourself some CBD products. The number one cause of death for young black men today is homicide. 95% of the time at the hands of black criminals in their own community. You could count on your fingers how many black Americans were wrongfully killed by the police last year. More than 8,000 were killed as victims of homicide. Again, 95% of the time at the hands of criminals in their own community. And the only way to effectively stop this would be more effective policing. Guys, I started talking about the key points, the key strategies for oppressing, separating the family. Since the 1960s, the single motherhood rate has gone from 22% to 70-something, 78%, 79%, 90% in some communities. Fear. What is this anti-police rhetoric? What is this systemic racism rhetoric at a time when we've made so many strides? There's no law on the books that discriminates against black Americans. In fact, the only laws we have are affirmative action laws that make it easier. Which, by the way, affirmative action is pretty counterproductive too. Because what it does is systematically assign black children to schools that they're not qualified for, and then they end up on academic probation and dropping out. We're talking about brilliant students that could have been on the dean's list in any other school, but because they were put in schools that were above their competence to succeed in because of affirmative action laws, they fail. They drop out. And that lends itself to the second key strategy of oppression, enforced ignorance. The Democratic Party has long been in coordination with the teachers' unions. They've been opposed to school choice because Democratic politicians have been cozied up to the unions, and the unions don't want to compete with charter schools. This contrast is made evident by comparing students in the same area at the same grade levels, both in public school and in the charter schools, sharing the same buildings, such as in New York, showed that in almost every case, students enrolled in the charter schools scored significantly higher in math and English than students attending the public option. The objection of the teachers' unions is that they don't want to compete with the charter schools for funding and teachers' wages. They say that if children are going to charter schools, then the public schools aren't receiving funding, and that's hurting them. Yeah, then we have things like No Child Left Behind, where it's almost impossible to remove a disruptive student from the class, even when teachers may be spending up to 70% of their time disciplining one student or a couple students and not teaching the other students. Teachers' unions have made it almost impossible to fire a bad teacher. There are literally buildings that they've built in some school districts to keep the teachers that they don't want in the classroom because they're terrible teachers, but they can't afford to fire. Because it could cost $50,000 to take a bad teacher to court to fire them. And that's not even a guarantee that they'll be fired. They would rather pay the teacher's salary because it's cheaper. So these teachers just stumble in and read magazines all day. Get paid year-round. Teachers' unions, give me a break. Today, the illiteracy rate among Black American students in Democratic states is horrific. In California, it was found that 75% of Black high school boys could not pass a basic English exam. In Baltimore, they looked at 5 schools and they could not find a single Black child that could pass a math or an English exam. In Baltimore, where they're spending like $15,000 of taxpayer money per student.
Hi, I'm Brad Keselowski, driver number 2, Discount Tire Ford Mustang. If there's one thing I've learned after years on the track, it's that having the right amount of pressure in your tires can make or break performance. Properly inflated tires are essential to the health of your car and to keep you driving safely. Check your tire pressure once a month, especially before road trips, or stop by your neighborhood tire retailer for help.
A message from the U.S. Tire Manufacturers Association.
Hi, folks. I'm James Morgan, a realtor with Grisham & Associates, LLC. I know it must seem like there's a million realtors out there making all kinds of promises. Want to hear my big marketing promise? I promise honest and fair dealings with all those I do business with. That may sound old-fashioned, and it is not very catchy, but it is true. I am your Colorado real estate specialist. Farm, land, mountain cabins, or urban dwellings. When you work with my team, we'll get the right property for you and be upfront and honest with you every step of the way. Over the years, my clients have told me just that fact alone separates us from others in the industry. If you are considering buying or selling real estate, call me, James Morgan, at 720-203-0731 or visit my website at coloradoproperties.online. No catchy slogan, just a client-first, honest real estate experience. Hit it, girls.
Keep listening to the American Freedom Network.
If your part of Rocky Mountain Paradise has been waiting to burn for 100 years, this fall you should call Affordable Tree Service North at 568-6898. I have 3 houses fire went around, and Rob's handiwork saved 4 miles of Boulder Mountain Lodge. We can get raging fire to drop out of the trees long before it gets too close to home. If the fire marshal flagged a drive or you're worried about the power lines, call 568-6898.
I'm a tree cutting man.
欢迎收听 KHNC 广播电台 Bucky Dillon 早安秀，大家的早安广播，谢谢。
According to the United States Census Bureau, Baltimore City Public Schools spent the 5th most per student out of the 100 largest districts in the country, spending more than $15,000 per student in 2016. It has, of course, increased since, I'm sure. And yet, in 13 of Baltimore's 39 high schools, not a single student scored proficient on the state's math exams. The Baltimore Project found another 6 schools where only 1% scored proficient in math. In about half of high schools in Baltimore City, only 14 of almost 4,000 students could pass a basic math exam. Only 15% of students could pass the English test. Funding is not the problem. And the corruption gets worse. In 2016, Baltimore schools were investigated for a phenomenon called ghost students, in which the schools were receiving funding, receiving up to $30 million in city and state taxpayer-funded money for students who were mistakenly never purged from the student rolls even after no longer attending the schools. New York spends about $27,000 per pupil. Washington, D.C. spends around $21,000 per student of taxpayer money a year. What kind of education in a private or public charter school could we provide to students at $20,000 a year? $20,000, $22,000. It's $21,974. That's $22,000. And yet the teachers are making nothing. Where's the money going? It's going into the hands of the teachers' unions. It's going into the hands of the school administrators. Think about it. I will quit my job today and teach math if every student gives me $22,000. Whoo! I'm rich. Happily, I'll become a teacher right now. Democrats don't want that. Then these kids might be smart enough to realize what's going on. They've been hoodwinked. The third prong of their diabolical strategy, fear and bullying. The narrative propagated by today's Democratic Party, you're a victim. America's racist. Never mind the fact that blacks in America are doing better than blacks anywhere else in the world, including Africa. And that's not to say that we haven't failed to take care of these communities. I think it's an absolute tragedy that Republicans have not stepped up and said this. Donald Trump was the first president to say, your schools are no good. 40% of your youth are unemployed. What have you got to lose? And it worked. He doubled his support in the black community. I just hope that we can continue that trend. But our Republicans are totally spineless. That's why I hate being called a Republican. Even though I have conservative, libertarian values, I believe in the conservatarian philosophy. I don't associate with the Republican Party because the Republican politicians, total slime bags, like all the other politicians. Totally useless. The failing policies of the Democratic-run cities have been overlooked intentionally, and the history of race relations and inequities deceptively filtered. You know that's true. And they want to push it. They called the 1776 Project racist, even though it was pretty honest about the moral failings of our government throughout history. They want to push the 1619 Project because it's all about racial division. It's all about fear. It's all about victimhood. One notable problem with so-called leaders of groups that are lagging is that in order to maintain political relevance, they can never actually solve the problems. Because if they were to, they'd be out of a job. population control. That's the fourth prong of the Democrats' strategy of oppression. The founder of Planned Parenthood was a known supporter of eugenics, the science of controlling the traits of future generations of people by controlled breeding. Her name was Margaret Sanger. She even gave a speech in 1926 to the Ku Klux Klan, and then later wrote in her autobiography saying, quote, "I believed I had accomplished my purpose, and that a dozen invitations to speak at similar groups were offered." She also said, "Eugenics suggested the reestablishment of the balance between the fit and the unfit. The birth rate among the finer stocks of humanity is to be increased by awakening among the fit and the realization of the dangers of a lessened birth rate in proportion to the reckless breeding of the unfit." The Nazis wrote a letter where they celebrated Margaret Sanger and said that they helped catalyze their philosophy. Today, black women, 13% of the black population is 13% of the whole population. Black women account for a third of all abortions in the United States, while only accounting for 1/6 of the population. In New York City, more black children are aborted than born.
Are you paying too much for your home, life, or auto insurance? It only takes 10 minutes to find out. Hi, this is Kevin Bowles with Badger Insurance Advisors. Choosing insurance plans can be difficult. That's why I make it easy. I'll make the calls, compare the plans and prices, and find you the insurance plan that fits your needs. Best of all, my help is at no cost to you. Call me today at 303-359-1799 or visit badgerinsuranceadvisors.com. Let me find the right insurance for you.
Are you ready for that kitchen remodel, bathroom update, or new granite countertops and backsplash? Colorado Kitchen and Bath offers all the products from the floor to the ceiling. Do you know they also have a separate in-house floor covering department? Carpet, hardwood, tile, luxury vinyl plank, laminate, and more. This is truly your one-stop shopping experience, offering quality, service, and satisfaction since 1983, right here in Northern Colorado. Colorado Kitchen and Bath proudly offers R.D. Henry cabinetry with multiple styles and finishes in their builder grade, semi-custom, and custom cabinetry line. Call today for your appointment at 970-353-2890 or just click on ckbsales.com. That's 970-353-2890 or log on to ckbsales.com. R.D. Henry Cabinetry from Colorado Kitchen and Bath. If you've been putting off that remodel, now's the time.
1360khnc.com has CBD products. Click on the shop button and get yours today.
Just go to 1360khnc.com/shop. The CBD on our website is 99% pure, all natural, no pesticides, non-GMO, is grown organically right here in Colorado, and is 100% THC free. Oh, and did you know ours is the lowest price CBD anywhere in Northern Colorado? For all your CBD needs, just log on to 1360khnc.com/shop.
All of the music for the Bucky Dillon Morning Show was provided by my band, Beer for Bears. Find us on social media by looking for Beer for Bears.
And yet, we have leftists, Democrats, liberals coming out here and saying that we are the cruel and violent ones. Screw you. Give me a break. Ridiculous. I come out here every day and remind people that patriotism is about loving all Americans. I come out here every day and try to remind people that in order for America to be wealthy, which is what I'd like to see. We need to lift up our disadvantaged communities. In your bodybuilding, what muscle group do you work first? The ones that are lagging. We can't be a truly rich nation if we have pockets of communities who are economically displaced. Populations where nobody wants to invest because the crime rate is like that of a third world country, because police aren't allowed to do their jobs, where every 4 years people come down and burn down the stores. By the way, those businesses are what create the property values. Your property is worthless if there's no businesses in your community. And what happens when you burn down the businesses? You drive down the property values. What happens when you drive down the property values? Property taxes go down. What's funded by property taxes? The schools. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy that's been implemented by the left. And then they come out and say that, oh, they're the racially tolerant ones. Oh, they're for the poor. Oh, they're for the working class. Don't listen to KHNC. They're violent and cruel. Maxine Waters. If you see anyone from that cabinet in a department store, at a gasoline station, you create a crowd, you push back on them. You tell them they're not welcome anymore. Anywhere. I love this country. I love all Americans. I celebrate diversity. And it's true. We have a wealth gap in this country. We have a wealth gap in home ownership. That's one of the number one ways to start accumulating wealth is to purchase your own home, to own a piece of this country. And that's something I encourage everyone to do. Stop renting. Stop throwing your money away. Purchase a home. You'll be on the right track. And if you need help with it, I have a friend you can call. His name is Jerry. He works for Sears Real Estate. He's been in Northern Colorado for 60 years. He's been in real estate since 2005. He will help you every step of the way. Jerry at SearsRealEstate.com. Own a piece of this country. Start building some wealth. Get out of the left's victimhood narrative, the demagoguery, the grievance peddling, the opposition tactics. That's just one step. We have a lot of work to do. Jerry at SearsRealEstate.com. Guys, if this episode has gotten you stressed out like it's got me stressed out, consider going to 1360khnc.com/shop and buying some CBD products. It helps with insomnia, anxiety, joint pain, muscle pain, depression, acne. Guys, it supports the station. Help support us. Become a content creator. Reach out to us. Tell us what you think of the shows. Tell your friends about KHNC. Support our advertisers. The Bucky Dillon Show.
Please work with Colorado Right to Life to abolish abortion and not with those who regulate it. For the so-called pro-life regulations convince even our own judges that the unborn child has no true right to life. So we've offered $10,000 to National Right to Life to name a single justice who has ever acknowledged the unborn child's right to life. Tragically, there are none. See that at americanrtl.org/regulations.
You can buy gold just about anywhere in the world from all kinds of different dealers. So why do you use the Patriot Trading Group?
20 years of service, just like that. A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, just like that. Lowest prices, just like that. No solicitation, just like that. Buying or selling, just like that.
For all your gold and silver needs, call the Patriot Trading Group at 800-951-0592, just like